Shalom and welcome to Practical Spirituality here at Beis Hashem. Beis Hashem's I don't know what to call it other than experience, because just like Nachalot's a state of mind, well, Beis Hashem is a state of mind as well. You could kind of call it, what's the name of the shul in Lakewood where I just spoke? Morty's? It's like Morty's Stiebel East, or another way, it could be called Shiners. But what the thing is that people are getting is that we don't need extra rules. We're not looking for more rules. And so when you have a place where everyone's accepted, everyone can be, you come as you are, and there's no rules, so all of a sudden what shows up is Torah and Avodas Hashem and Lishmakite and all kinds of good things come. Now again, I'm not going to suggest this necessarily for young teenagers, because apparently putting young teenagers in a vice grip for several years, rather than leaving them up to their own devices, is probably a good thing. I don't know. I mean, I raised my teenagers very free and they've all come out amazing. But you do have to hold your breath for a few years, because just like, what's gonna happen with this kid? But thank God they're all coming out great. I think the rule is like this. If you're lousy, you need a strong structure for your kids. But if you're great, I mean, if you're doing great, your wife's doing great, you have Shalom Bayis, you're serving Hashem, and it's a home of Shechina, so then you can let your kids run a little more wild. Because they're getting the right examples in the home, so they don't need as much structure. But if your home isn't really thriving spiritually, so then maybe the structure is probably a good thing for the kids for a while, and hopefully they can thrive.
You got the parenting in there. Good job.
Sure, we get a little parenting in. Anyway, it turns out that the only structure that a person needs, the only structure I guess that a Jew needs, is halacha. That's the only structure we need. All other imposed structure, all other conventional addition is unwelcome. And it's not that it's unwelcome, because you see that there's community after community, and shul after shul, and yeshiva after yeshiva, that have all kinds of introduced structures that might even be just minhagim. They might even just be the customs of it, but they're like serious structures. And when you introduce those, it causes the souls of at least the kids growing up, and maybe even many of the adults, teenagers, it causes their souls to ice over. Because Hashem gave us a very, very specific formula, a very specific prescription. A good example of this is I landed in a plane, I'm sure as many of you have. You land in the plane, and several very Haredi people stand up while the plane's still going about 500 miles per hour. You ever seen that? Like, they just stand up, and the plane landed, we're here, let's get up. And they get up, and the plane just, and the stewardesses are like, sit down, and they're not sitting down. And so I once had a goy sitting next to me say, and a goy means a Gentile. Jews are very ethnocentric. We make up 0.0000001% of the world population. Yet we've completely distinguished Jews and Gentiles, because there's only two types in the world. You're either Jewish or you're a Gentile. And the funniest thing is that's such a joke that we are like, we're like, if it was like a giant stack of salt and there was one piece of pepper in there, and we're like, yeah, this is salt and pepper, and whereas anyone else would say like, no, that's a 10-foot high pile of salt with one little grain of pepper inside it. But the funny thing is the Gentiles know there's Jews and Gentiles. The Gentiles know it. And not only they know it, but they also know that they have to decide whether they love us or hate us, which is also strange. But you can refer to October 8th for that, October 8th was like, the permission slip was granted on October 7th, but October 8th was when the Gentiles found out they really do hate us, even though they don't have any idea who we are. But, they hate us without knowing who we are. Anyway, so back to rules. So this Gentile, this goy says to me, I've noticed that sometimes these planes land and there's always this Orthodox Jew who like stands up while the plane's speeding down the highway. So I said to him, listen, in Judaism we have a lot of rules. We're not accepting any more. No more rules. We've got enough rules. We're not looking for more rules. And I'll say something that's crazy that you guys, this may be a little too liberal, so I apologize for any of you who are too conservative or more conservative.
Yeah.
What I'm about to say it might be a little on the liberal side, but once you know there's a God and you know the Torah is divine, once you know that, so then you look at the Torah and the Torah tells you 365 things not to do, which when extrapolated, it comes out to about 30,000 laws. Because in the Rambam, if you count all the laws of the Torah, it comes out to 45,000 laws. So because there's much fewer positive commandments than negative commandments.
But even just like Shabbos would probably take up like a lot.
Sure, of course. So there's a lot more what you shouldn't do than what you should do. And therefore there's, of the 45,000, about 30,000 are what you shouldn't do. And 15,000 are how to do what you should do. And some of you guys might think like, wow, very restrictive. 365 negative commandments with 30,000 laws, how to keep them? Sounds very restrictive. Like, wow, I don't know if I like those restrictions. You guys like restrictions? Most people think restrictions are like un-American or something. Libertarians don't like a lot of restriction. But the truth is, you love restriction. You love restriction. In fact, you pray for restriction every day. You pray for it every day. You give thanks to God for the because we pray that the parts of our body that are supposed to flow are flowing, the parts of our bodies that restrict are restricting. We love restriction. If you didn't have restriction, you guys would all be wearing diapers. Okay? Restriction's good. And I imagine any of you guys, what's your favorite pedal in the car? The gas or the brakes? Which one? You probably think it's the gas. No, it's the brakes. It's the brakes. What enables me when I'm mountain biking down the mountains of Jerusalem to go the speed I go? What enables that? What gives me the go-ahead? My brakes. Understand? If you see me going, you're like, wow, shooting down the trail. No, I'm just like, I love my brakes. I love them. In fact, I'm on my third set of brakes on my latest bike. My bike's only 2 years old. Never had gone through 3 sets of brakes.
Good job.
I didn't wear out the brakes. The first ones, I realized I can't go quite as fast as I could go. And someone suggested that I get this other brake called the Saints, Shimano Saints. So I got the Saints. I'd had Saints in the past. But Saints are a bit on and off. And someone told me that get the Hayes. They stop like a Saint, but they got much better modulation. So you can feather it and scrub speed in ways that you can't do with the Saints. And so I got the Hayes. And now I'm riding on these Hayes. They're called Dominions. Dominions. And boy, do I have Dominion when I'm on that bike now. And you understand, but it's the brakes. What makes a marriage great is Shmir Sinayim, the brakes. That's what makes a marriage great. It's the brakes that make it great. I'm sure, you guys probably don't go to movies because they're on your phone, but what made movies great was people would shut their phones off. And people don't talk, which would be really disturbing. And the breaks of what makes synagogue, shul, prayer possible is the breaks. Everyone should be quiet when it's quiet time. And to be able to let off the brakes for the times it's time to shout out something with all your heart, like Shema Yisrael. But think about it, even when we say Shema Yisrael, we put the brakes on our eyes. Because if I want to say that God is one, well, I don't want to see two. If I'm talking about oneness, I don't want to see multiplicity. And so I go for a double covering. Because you could just close your eyes. But everyone, close your eyes a second. If you close your eyes, you'll see there's a lot of light. Take your right hand and press in, and you see a lot of dark, unless, of course, you've recently taken a psychedelic, which means they're seeing all kinds of colored patterns and stuff. But anyway, but the point is that we put the brakes on when we say Shema, right on our eyes. And we actually have brake levers. These are our brake levers. The tzitzis, you know, are the brake levers. These are the brake levers, and we say it every day that, you know, that what are these things for? Is that we're just kind of, you know, the eye sees, the heart wants, and you're like, you just got these brakes right next to you, and they're just there to remind you to slow down, and then sometimes they're telling you to stop, and so you got to stop. And so there's 30,000 thou shalt nots. But you ready for my liberal diuk? I didn't get to the liberal part. You ready for the liberal part? And by the way, you may say I'm crazy. And please say I'm crazy. You're all being so quiet. You can always speak. Ellie knows, like my classes, just say whatever you want. So what is the diuk? What is the inference? What do you throw your thumb for when you hear, don't do these 365 things? What's the diuk?
Do everything else.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ellie. Everything else.
Literally everything that's allowed.
It means go do everything else. Well, what would happen to you? Let's play it out here a little bit. What would happen to you if you really took this seriously? I know you guys probably, I like the word pop. Everyone say pop?
Pop. Pop.
Pop.
Pop.
I like the word pop instead of raising hands. Instead of saying raise your hands if, okay? Give a pop if you never thought of it this way.
Pop.
It's very interesting. Let's play it out a little bit. Let's see what it means exactly. That it means go do everything else. It's pretty interesting. Well, let's start. The first thing that came to my mind was a cold plunge.
Was it?
Cold plunge.
Cold plunge?
Yeah, like an ice bath.
Oh, cold plunge, right?
Yeah, cold plunge. Is it mutter to do a cold plunge? Is it permitted?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Oh, and before we go there, I just want to talk about the brakes are called usser, and the gas is called mutter. Okay? The brakes is called usser, and the gas is called mutter. And let me explain. The brakes, usser, means tied up. Like matir asuri means to release that which is bound, the tied up. So something that's tied up, now we can talk Kabbalah for a second. Everything that's tied up, everything in the Torah that's forbidden, meaning those 30,000 laws, that if you do them, you get tied up. Not that we're going to tie you up, but you just get tied up. You can tell a person who's tied up. I don't know how spiritually sensitive you are, but you can tell when someone's, you can tell that they just finished eating a shark taco, or something. People actually eat shark. Yeah. Funny thing is, I'm allergic to shark. Before I knew about kosher and all that, we'd be surfing in Mexico, and you'd order a fish taco. But these Mexicans, they don't have any scruples, so they don't care. It's this fish, that fish, shark. So anyway, we finished our fish tacos. A little while later, I'm like about to die, and I found out that I'm allergic to shark, because we went back to the stand, and the guy was like, we said, what kind of fish is that taco? He says, oh, this is shark. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, shark, man. But I thought it was kind of a good thing, because I'm kind of hoping sharks are allergic to me. As a surfer, like hopefully they just go the other way. We have a mutual understanding here. And I don't eat shark, and they don't eat me.
Okay.
But what I wanted to share is that all the forbidden things in the Torah, which are called usser, means they're bound down. All the things that are called mutter are released. Well, what are they released for? They are released for us to raise them up. You see, we're all deep sea divers, guys. We're deep sea divers. We're here to mine coal. We're here to go deep into the ocean and pull out the oil, you know, like the oil rigs out in the ocean, or the natural gas, or the coal from the earth. God put us here to raise it up. Everything that's usser is got a little part of the dark side in it. Let me explain that really quick. So you got light, right? Like even the light bulbs here are perfect. You've got light. And if you filter out that light, you can have an image, right? You filter out light and get an image. I don't think I can do that here. We're not going to get a shadow here. But maybe on this chair. So if you see a shadow of my hand on there? Okay, let's see. It don't matter. But the point is that when you filter out light, you get an image. So all the images in this world, everything filtered out that makes an image in this world, like, for example, this cup and water. I have a cup, I got water in it. Filtered light. But when you filter it too much, what happens when light gets overly filtered? What becomes? What if we put a green filter on these lights up top? The whole room would turn green. Now, what if we went with dark green, forest green? What if we went with like a deep blue? What would you notice? It's getting darker and darker, and after a while, we put black. You can't see anything. And so the only way God could create this world was through the emanating of light called the Or Ein Sof. That Or Ein Sof then gets filtered and filtered and filtered and filtered and filtered until you get wood, until you get wool, animal. And the thing is, though, that it keeps getting darker and darker and darker and darker and darker and darker. There's a cutoff line where it goes from wood to, meaning which is called klipos noga. It means let's just call it available for raising. And then it hits a line, it hits a cutoff point where now it's really just dark. And the Torah lists that stuff. There's certain things that are on that list, including shark. But there are things that are just simply forbidden. You can't get near them. Why? Because they're so filtered out. So the question would be, maybe you want to ask, why didn't God just end at the cutoff line? Why did he let the darkness keep penetrating into a fully dark location? Why does he allow the black filter? Answer, you guys all know the answer. Why would God allow it? Here, free will, yeah. For choice. Because if he didn't and everything was mutter, so then you really wouldn't have choice. You have to have a dark side, and not only that, not only have to have a dark side to choose, you have to have a dark side inside of you to make that choice. Meaning you got to have something drawing you towards the dark side. And you want to get to know that side of you pretty well. You know, and you guys all know it. I'm preaching to the choir here. Everyone in here knows you got a dark side. And that's what makes you good. What makes you good is your dark side. Imagine a person walking down the street doesn't know he has a dark side. Is that a good person? I personally wouldn't trust that person very much. You know why? Because if you don't know you have a dark side, so you have no muscles. You have no muscles to withstand it. You understand? You have to have spent years of your life practicing how to withstand the pull towards darkness to build the muscles. This is why Jordan Peterson says that anyone who believes that they could never be a Nazi guard is the most likely person that would be a Nazi guard if he got pushed that direction. You know, if he got in that spot.
That's a pretty chazak line. That's pretty chazak.
Yeah, it's very chazak.
I believe that I'll never be a Nazi guard. No one will ever push me to it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
And I won't ever be a Nazi guard.
And he would consider you good. But he would consider you good. And he would consider the person who believes they could never be a Nazi guard naive. You know why? No, you're good because you've been playing with your dark side since you were probably taught about the Yetzer Hara when you were 5. And you've been learning how to interact. So now if you got pushed, you'd take a bullet first. Again, his quote was, anyone who believes they couldn't be a Nazi guard is the most likely to be, that they could be if they really got pushed. When I say push, I mean, think of what push means, meaning they'll wipe out their kids. You're not going to be a Nazi guard, so say goodbye to your kids. And they're holding the gun in their hand. It's not a theoretical. So the, and you know, Judaism says if someone says shoot, someone says, press this button and destroy this whole city or we shoot you. Yeah. You take the bullet. Is that right? No, yeah. No, what was I thinking? What was the thing? Sorry. You shoot them. Or we shoot you.
No, either I'll shoot you or I'll shoot the whole city.
They have to shoot the whole city.
Yeah.
Right. Chayecha kodmin, in that case, which is crazy. So, anyway, but let's get back to business. I want to say the opposite. Let's say the positive side. Anyone who believes they could be a Nazi guard would never be one. Anyone who believes they could be would never be one. You know why? Because they know they've got that side to them. And so now they get to start building the muscles and building the muscles and building the muscles to be good. So that when they finally got pushed that direction, he's ready. You understand? Now he's ready to fight the fight. Which is everyone here who was raised believing that they have some kind of Yetzer Hara. Now, let's play it out. You ready? We're going to play it out, and then we'll probably call it a day. I don't know how much longer we're
Still
going
didn't figure out how to put our life together over here. We're trying.
Let's play out doing everything. So we're going to start with an ice bath. Anyone here ever jumped into frozen water?
Arizal's mixed.
Way. That's like a jacuzzi compared to an ice bath. Baal Shem Tov's mikveh, I've heard, is on that level. Has anyone ever checked the actual temperature of it? I wonder what it actually is. Anyway, but ice baths are they're generally around 40 down to into the 30s. Fahrenheit.
Clarifying.
Not below 0 Celsius. And when you get in, you have to shut your brain off completely, because what happens is your body, let's say you're going down the steps, your body starts going back up. So you're like, and you literally start going back up. And I've coached many people into ice baths. And one of the first things I say to them is, well, you're going to need to breathe the whole time. Meaning as you go in, you're going to breathe. The other thing is you must keep your feet forward, meaning forward motion. Keep your feet going forward. And if you think it's cold, it's not. Ice baths aren't cold, they're hot. Because when that level of coldness touches your skin, it burns. It burns. You ever touch the ice cubes? Is that cold or hot? Does it feel cold or is it burning? Your hands start burning from the discomfort. But you get in, and the way I learned was I was coached by my son of Rumi, because he's an ice bath guy. And what happened was he asked me, where does it hurt? I said, it's hurting on the back of my calves. He says to me, are you the back of your calves? I said, no, but they're killing me. He says, okay, where else does it hurt? I said, on my shoulders. My shoulder's killing me on my shoulders. He's like, okay, are you your shoulders? I said, no, I'm not my shoulders. Where else? Where is it hurting you now? He said, I'm like, my forearms. My forearms killing me on forearms. He's like, are you your forearms? I said, where else? My feet. My feet. Are you your feet? Anyway, he's like, you realize you've been in here for like a minute and a half? You just kept going. And next thing I know, I just went, you mean this is just my body? Ever since then, I can get into ice baths. But I want to take you guys somewhere very deep right now for a second. If you do the things that are mutter, if that's the diuk, that things that are mutter you go do, you're going to be literally ramming your body into wall after wall after wall, and it hurts, and you'll have to ask yourself, is that me, or is that my body? Is that me, or is that my ego? Because I know probably 4/5 of you, 4/5 of you, 80% the reason you're not activated more in your life is because of possible rejection. You know, you might get rejected, but bumping into that and then being stuck with a horrible rejection, which nobody wants to deal with, and all it makes you do is think alcohol, basically. You just want a Band-Aid as quickly as possible when you get rejected or when you're feeling your ego, hurt. And I myself, coming in here the first day, I'm a little nervous. I feel like I have a lot to give, but at the same time, whatever. I don't have to go into where I feel nervous in your eyes, in how I come off in your eyes. But there's something there, and if you don't bump into it, let's put it like this: if you do bump into it, you're gonna have to ask yourself, where does it hurt? Who is that? Who is that? And what you'll realize is it's nobody, because you're not that. You're not that. There was a chassid 33 years ago, dancing Simchas Beis Sheva. It's in Shana Rishona, Mea
Like
Sharim.
if you're doing davar asur, you're not even gonna ask yourself that question. You're just gonna go do that. That's what you say?
That I don't know. That's an interesting diuk.
Well, you said if you're doing davar mutter,
If you do anything that's not usher, if you just say, if it's in front of me, I'm gonna go do it. You're gonna start bumping into stuff. You're gonna be hitting the ice bath. I was just using the ice bath as a muscle for a physical thing, but you understand, you don't even know where it'll take you. I mean, you have no idea where you're gonna go with this.
you say be a yes man.
Exactly.
Go in the ice bath.
Be a yes. What we're ultimately saying is being a yes man. And when you live in the yes man world, you have miracles happen. Miracles happen all the time. Yesterday I was mountain biking in the foothills of Jerusalem. You know when you're on the flatlands coming from, let's say, Ben Gurion area, and then all of a sudden it does start going up? So right when it starts going up is an amazing mountain bike park called Park Canada. So I'm riding with my 14-year-old son, and we're just flying down this trail. It's a serpentine, unbelievable trail. And I've been following him, which is such nachas. My boys are all trained in hardcore downhill mountain biking. So anyway, but now we're cruising along. And I passed this guy on the side of the road. There's a mountain biker, an older guy. And I said to him, as we're flying by, I just said, everything okay? And all he said was, I'm hooking up my flashlights because it was getting dark. Now I had timed this ride that it was gonna get just too dark for my son and I. And just then we would reach the peak where the sunset lighting up the clouds. The sun had already set 20, 30 minutes ago, but the sunset had lit up all the clouds, and I was going to use that as our lighting equipment, because the last trail, which is an amazing downhill trail, very technical, requires light. But there was no more light, except I know that this trail faces the sunset over Ashdod, and that was going to be our lighting. So I'm riding along, and I'm always checking. Now I'm in front, checking my son's behind me once in a while, a little 14-year-old guy. And finally, I just realized he's not there. So I look back, and he's gone. And we need every second we've got. We were going to get to the car pitch black. We need every second we got. We don't have lights. And my son's not there. I ride back a couple hundred yards. He's like, I blew out my back tire. And I'm like, doh. I can't even describe to you guys how far we are from our car at this point. And we're in pitch black on a trail with no way out but that trail, and that trail's long. And to get to our car is miles with no lights. So anyway, we're fixing his tire. We're using our phones for flashlights, and it's not going so well. And I finally get to a point where I have a needle nose pliers, but I got to a point where something was wrong, and I needed another needle nose pliers. But guess what happened? After 20 minutes of fighting with this tire, comes along Mr. Flashlight Man. Yeah, because it's not only am I a yes man, I live in a yes world. And And yes, man, my new friend, his name's Murad. Murad, I forget, some Salvalski from Moldova. Anyway, this guy wound up taking his headlamp, putting it on my son, well, helped us fix the tire, had another needle nose plier so we could get it done. He went in front with his handlebar light, my son on his helmet, and I was right in the middle between them. And we had the most amazing ride the rest of the night with this giant orange moonrise. And this guy got us, he literally escorted us all the way back to our car in the yes world. You become a man. You become a man. How many women are married to women today? Oh, I didn't mean it like that. Meaning, how many men are married to girly men? When you go up against the world, if it's mutter, you just go right into it. When you go right in like that, when you go into it, when you bang into it, it toughens you up. My kids, when they were little, as soon as they could walk, I would put them on a bike. As soon as they could get on the bike, I could get them off-road. What does it mean to put him off-road? I cover his body in padding, like literally, he looks like a giant cotton ball. But I'd order on Amazon pads for a little kid and cover them in padding, full face helmet, full finger gloves. I don't want to kill a kid. And I'd take him out. And sometimes, sometimes he would, more than one, sometimes, the front tire washes out, and now you just see this kid just rolling down the trail like a snowball, like it's like a yard sale, like gloves here and helmet there, and it's like, I collect him at the bottom of the mountain. He just I collect him at the bottom, I put him up on a rock, and he's just like, he's crying. I want mommy. And he's crying, and anyway, it takes like 15 minutes to get him back to baseline, and get him all back in all his equipment, and then I point to the top of the hill. I said, do it again. He looks at me like, what? I'm like, I'll carry the bike, because he can't carry it up to the top. I said, you climb back up and do it again. He said, no. And then I say to him, listen, if you want to ride with me, you're not going to leave this mountain a loser. You're not going to lose to this. It's you against the mountain. And if you don't go back up there, you're just not coming next time. And that's like a fate worse than death. Tatsi's going mountain biking without you. Not to mention when you have two older brothers who are right there with all their equipment, and they're like, and so he makes his way up to the top. I give him a couple pointers, what not to do, so he doesn't do it again. But my daughters-in-law thank me after they marry my sons for having made them into men. Because, in the Hasidic world, you're not called a man until you're married. He's called a boy, and then he gets married, and now he's called a man. But how many of those...
Yeah, but Rabbi, you're making it sound a lot easier than it is.
Like just falling down a...
You're saying just,
No, it's not.
What do you mean?
I mean, just go ahead and get out there and rah, Tony Robbins this shit.
Banging as many things as you can.
I mean, Rabbi, we're sitting there knock low, come on, man. Give us something a little more practical, I'm saying.
Well, I don't know your life. What's your name?
You sound like you're talking to a group of, high-functioning multi-billionaires over there. I'm saying we're trying to learn a couple of Mishnayos. I'm saying,
What I'm doing
ice
is...
baths and, I don't do ice baths, I do hot tubs.
So, the reason I'm doing it is because I know deep down that everyone, including you, what's your first name?
Moshe.
Including you, Moshe, that every one of us has brakes on where we should be pressing the gas. And that's why I'm saying it. And so this is a big Maven Yovin, meaning this is a big whoever is in this room, whoever's listening to this online, this is for all of us to think about, where is it that I've got my brakes on, and to hit the gas so that I can become who I need to be. And it takes courage. And courage is like a tough attribute, you know. But the only way we're ever going to become who we're meant to be is by banging into it. And look at what happened with Adam and Chava. Adam and Eve. Adam was a girl. First, he's getting dominated by Lil. Throws Lil out. Now he's getting dominated by Chava. He's a little girl. His wife calls the shots. You know, hey, Adam, try some of this. You know, all right. You know. He's got no backbone. And notice what her curse is. Notice what his curse is. His curse is, well, get the hell out there to the coats of a dardar. Go out into the thorns and thistles and get all cut up trying to deal with the bitterness of life. Because it's bitter, man. Cold pools are bitter. A shot of whiskey's bitter. I start my kids very young on hard alcohol. Yeah, drink that bitter stuff and make a face as if it tastes good. Bang your shot glass down and say, smooth. There's nothing smooth about that. I mean, if you paid for a good bottle, it's smoother. But it's nothing smooth. You don't see women doing that. Women aren't shooting shots of burning hot liquid.
What's your message? To put yourself through pain in order to bring out the best of yourself?
It's God's message to Adam, is that go out there and sweat. Go out and sweat. And you want to know what happens? If you go out there and sweat, you know what your wife does? She desires you. That's her curse. She'll desire you. She'll have painful childbirth. Why is she having a painful child? Because she desires you. Now she's pregnant. And now she's going to have a painful birth. And Vehuyim shal bach. He'll rule over you, not you ruling over him. Women don't want to call the shots. They don't want to call any shots. When you take your wife out to dinner and she's sitting in the passenger seat and you're like, okay, where do you want to go? You know, she's like, I want to go back in the house. Are you taking me out or am I taking you out? Don't ask me where I want to go. Surprise me. Why do you think women love surprise? You can surprise them with anything, just random stuff. They're such suckers for it. Because they don't want to be in control. And what is the word surprise? Surprise is something you didn't know was going to happen, which means it's out of control. And a married man can use the element of surprise every single day. Every single day. I do it every single day. Every single day. And I can just be in the kitchen with my wife and just say, what she really needs right now is some surprise. How do I know? Because I see on her face she's tired. Now, any other man would say, she's tired, she probably needs to sleep. Maybe I should take over a sink. No, when a woman looks tired, it's not because she's tired. It's because she's been made to be in control. She's been made to be in charge. Nothing exhausts a woman like that. She could do 20 sinks and be filled with energy, but only in the man that she's trusted to be that man so that she doesn't have to even carry her own weight. And so what we're discussing here is really Bereshis. We're talking about Adam Rishon hitting the world like bam. And then she respects him. And then he rules over her. In a good way, meaning not a bad way. That she's just like surrendered. But a woman who's surrendered is nothing more beautiful. There's nothing more radiant. There's nothing more holy. There's nothing more attractive to a man than a surrendered woman. But the same thing goes in our professional lives, and the same thing goes in every aspect that we're tested in our lives. So when the Torah says don't do those things, we're talking about, the Torah says not to do 365 things, which breaks down to 30,000 halachas. The diuk is go do everything else. Go bang into it. Go do everything else. And get bruised and bumped and cut up in the process. And what happens is you start to see where the actual edge is. Well, if I know where the edge is, I can be courageous. Because you know what's going on, guys? What's going on is that we have edges we created. First of all, we have edges our scared mommy created because she didn't stop mothering us, otherwise known as smothering us. So we have edges they created. We have edges. Remember, we spoke at the very beginning of this year is about how society adds rules beyond the Torah that freeze over the soul of man. Those are edges that are not real edges. Those are edges that are just there to, somehow keep us in line. I don't know what those edges are. Which is why Beis Hashem is so amazing, because this place says, we'll just let the Torah handle what's forbidden. If the Torah doesn't forbid it, go ahead and enjoy. But the point is that we have imposed edges. Well, think about it. Just take a moment and think about this, and then I'm going to hit the road. But think about this. You have your own self-imposed limits where you just don't go outside that realm or you'll get burned, right? A way of a mushal for thinking about that is if you guys have ever gotten in a really hot mikveh, for example, the one right behind you, okay? This is the first year ever they've turned it down to 110 degrees, because it's always been 113, and just this summer they kept catching people trying to put cold water in it, so they finally brought it down to like 110. And which is lame for those of us who are here 30 years, like what happened to our mikveh. But when you go in on the 113, so you get in the mikveh, and what happens is, because your outside of your body is much cooler, and it creates a thin layer of cooler water that you can survive in. And all it takes is just poking your finger out, and it's like, bah! Like your finger burns, because you want to get out so slowly, as if like somehow keep that membrane of cooler water around you, so you can get out. And we're all with that. We're all living our lives like that because we all have these edges where we just don't go. Now think about it. This is what I want to say. Is if you have that edge, which you know deep down, and this is tough to think about, but deep down you know it's not real. That's why it's called they call it the glass ceiling. Glass ceiling, meaning I keep banging my head on it, but if I can see right through that another guy in my same field is killing it, while I've got myself totally held back. So we know deep down that's not the edge. We know that's not the edge. But because we've made it the edge, and here's the part that's hard to conceptualize, but please try, is that the boogeyman's on the other side. The boogeyman's on the other side. And I've got a lot of courage for the stuff I know, but I ain't got a lot of courage for the boogeyman. And so what happens is you don't get to exercise courage. If I go to Europe and I'm doing some riding in France, in the Alps, I'm not going to bring my bike. I'm going to rent a bike. I don't know the bike yet. How fast am I going to go? The boogeyman's, How fast am I going to go until I get to know the brakes on that bike? So I know what my chance of stopping are. How fast could I go? When you got the boogeyman there, it's very hard to be courageous. I mean, guys, give a pop. Let's hear the pops. Where are my pops? Pop. Give a pop if it's pretty hard to be courageous around your scary stuff. It's hard. But think about it. What if you pushed through it and you saw it was a mirage and really the edge is way over there? Tell me, when you're now moving around those same areas that were once, this was the edge, but now you realize the edge is here. As you now move around, how do you move around? Courageously. When you get to the real edge, That's where courage happens. When Hashem said, don't do those things, he's saying, do the other ones, though. Do the other ones. And what will happen if you do the other ones is you're going to have to deal with yourself. You're going to be scared as hell. You're going to have to bang into stuff. You're going to get bumps. You're going to get bruised. But you're going to eventually get courageous. You're going to get courageous. And then you can show up to Hashem Ad Mea V'Esrim and take your body and everything you put it through in this process. And I'm using it proverbially, body, meaning we're talking about your whole structure of developing courage. But what you'll do when you turn Mea V'Esrim is you're going to take your whole body like a cloth, like it's just draped. And you'll just take it and you'll go like this to Hashem. Just go, take it. I used every last drop. I left no rock unturned. I tried everything. Tasted each thing. And the last thing I'll say is just the scariest thing is that every one of us knows that every time we've ever pushed the limits, God recreated the world around that new place. In my company, the Possible You, which is now in 5 cities, and there's 70 people working there, and there's a lot going on with the Possible You. Every single thing I've ever done and every one of them I was scared of, but every time I pushed it through and did it, what did God do? He recreated the world around that. You know what that made me think? Well, I'm not pushing hard enough. Because think about it, do we know the limit? What is the limit of how far you can go? And by the way, some of you might say, well, what if it fails? What if it's just what if you push the limit in some field, some business, some anything, and then it fails? You want to know something amazing? You'll see where you get to later in life, like a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, you'll see the actual success of this whole new thing is built out of the crumbs, out of the shards of that failure. It's literally made of the shards of that failure.
And you keep seeing that over and over again.
Over and over. So what is the limit then to how far you can push if God keeps recreating the world around that which you pushed? I'm sure some of you guys are single, a couple of single guys here. So I'm sure your thoughts are like, how am I going to support a wife? And then all of us who are married, who are in here, well, we might have that thought, but we'll have a thought like, how are we going to support, what if we have like 10 more kids? How are we going to support that? Or how am I going to make weddings? And yet, every man in this room, there's a bracha too, every man in this room is going to be the host of his child's wedding. Can say amen. Multiple times. And every single time you'll be asking yourself, how am I going to pull this off? And yet there you'll be, like pouring shots in the Mizrach. Pouring shots in the Mizrach like mamish magnanimous, like just like giving it out, man. And you're like, at least for a moment until you deal with the bill. But like you'll see that God will recreate the world around whatever it is you do. And therefore, when you see the negative commandments, stay away. But if something is not part of that, if something's part of the world of mutar, and I'm not going into the Kabbalah of like raising stuff, but just there for your development, there for you to bump into enough things so that you can develop yourself all the way and live your life with courage. That's what it's there for. Shkoyach. Blessings.